a great honour to be here today. I'm going to read you a bit out of Last Friends, which is my latest book. It is supposedly the last volume of a trilogy. I didn't realise that exactly until I started thinking hard about what I'd done in the other two. Since I've killed off a great many characters in the first two volumes, and they've had their memorial services, I'm afraid, an awful lot of memorial service. Well, we're down to the minor characters in the last, but you see, one thing I've learned in writing these books is that there are no minor characters. I don't think there are any minor characters in life, and I don't think there should not be any minor characters in a real book, real work of fiction. You've got to care about them. You've got to be like God. You've got to love everybody. Very hard when it's a man like Sir Edward Fiscal Smith, who I'm going to tell you about in a moment, but you have to love him. Well, in the end, I rather did. But I'll read you a passage. They've been to a memorial service. A man they both had loved for a very, very long time. And, of course, Fiscal Smith, who was always on the make, and always, poor thing, needing a sort of bed for the night and a friend. He said, but Dulcie, actually, I could stay with you. She lives right off in Dorset. They've been in London for the memorial service. I could stay perhaps a night or week or fortnight. And she, of course, Dulcie, who's a sweet little old widow, plus, says yes. And after many adventures, they get home, and she wakes up the next morning in her comfortable bed with a sense of unrest. Can you really hear me, or are you just saying it? You can? Okay. Her window is open in the English tradition, 2 inches at the top for the circulation of refreshing night air. Oh, how they dreamed of it all the years in Hong Kong. Long before the European central heating, in their native English bedrooms, Dulcie and Willie, he's dead, had also eschewed central heating as rather working class. Outside was country silence, except for the clatter of an occasional wooden-looking leaf dropping from the Magnolia grandiflora. Dulcie was in time for prayer for the day on faithful BBC 4, which she still called the home service. Now, where was she? Was it today they had to go to London to dear old Eddie's thing? Oh, no, they'd done that. Flames, she thought, ashes to ashes, and she dropped off to sleep again. Quite soon she woke again. She thought, what a party it had been. What awful teeth everyone had. How old they'd grown. Every one of them, thanks to Nanny, mine are all my own. Full 5 minutes brushing morning and night, more than the teeth at yesterday's party. Oh, the awful rictus grins. And the bridges, you could see them. Queen Elizabeth I, who never smiled, sensible woman. The old Queen Mother never stopped smiling. She should have done. Early morning tea. And then she thinks, because she keeps forgetting what her husband looked like. And she thinks, well, I better get tea for Fiscal Smith, who stayed. Now then, Rockingham china. And she tottered up to the guest room, and she found it empty. Fiscal Smith, she called. What is his first name? Nobody ever knew. Hello? That must be said for him, nobody ever asking. Hello? Silence. The bed in his room was tidily turned back. His pyjamas were folded on the pillow and his dressing gown and slippers side by side on the upright chair. So he'd brought his night things. He'd intended to stay from the start, the old chancer, except that he was absent. She sat down. Last night there'd been something rather sensational, rather terrible. Oh dear, yes. Poor old Phil's empty house had burned to the ground. And here was Fiscal Smith out of the window, tramping up the hill towards her. 5:30 in the morning, and it was beginning to rain. He saw her and called out, all well, it's still there. What? Fiscal Smith's nice old place. Do you never forget anything? Fiscal Smith, what lunch? A lifetime of lunches, he said, thinking of the lunch you gave. Oh, how arrogant you are, Fiscal Smith. I simply put my case, he said. He's an old lawyer. He was with her in the kitchen now, and she said the thing, by the way, that you must never, never say to any guest. Would you like me to help you with your packing? She shocked herself, and there fell a silence, and he stepped out upon the terrace with his cup of tea. He was still there half an hour later, still examining the view over the Roman road towards Salisbury. Dulcie came walking past him, towards the wrought iron gates of her big house in the village. Fully dressed now in tweed skirt and cardigan, remarkably high heels and some sort of casual coat, not warm, from the cupboard under the stairs, and she carried a prayer book, Poe-faced. Fiscal Smith shouted, "Where are you going? Phil's house is all right." "I am going to church," said Dulcie. "Dulcie, it is 6 o'clock in the morning, it is clouding over, it is beginning to rain. That coat you had in Hong Kong, and it isn't Sunday." He came up close to her. "I need to say my prayers," she said. "It will be locked." "Oh, I doubt it. The great Chloe is supposed to open it, but she usually forgets to shut and locks it the night before." "You mean the mad woman who runs about with cakes?" "Yes, well-meaning, but the mind's going. Sometimes she locks in the morning and unlocks at night. We shall have to tell the church warden soon. Actually, I think she may be the church warden." There's nothing much going on in the church. Not even anybody sleeping rough. It's too damp. He was padding along behind her. "There you are," she said, "unlocked." It was unlocked all night. Inside, the church scowled at them and blew a blast of damp breath. Hassocks looked ready to sprout moss, and there was a hymn book smell. Notices curled on green baize, gone ragged, and the stained glass windows appeared to bulge inwards from the flanking walls. 2 sinister ropes dangled in the belfry tower. It was bitterly cold. "Stay there," Dulcie ordered him, making for a chancel prayer desk up near the organ. "I can't pray with anyone watching." "The Muslims can," he said, trying to bring the blood back to his knobbed hands. "This is a refrigerator, not a church." "Muslims," she said, "can crowd together on mats and swing about and keep their circulation going. And you don't see what the women do, but I don't think they pray like the men, in a huddle anyway. I need what I know." And she vanished, eastwards. 5 minutes, he shouted after her, as her high heels tapped out of sight. "Utter madness," he said to the stained-glass windows. "Hopeless woman, hopeless village." His own voice echoed hopelessly around the rood screen and its sad saints. Rows of regimental flags drooped down the side aisle like shredding dishcloths, still as sleeping bats. "They're all off their heads here," he called out. There was the sound of a heavy key being turned in the lock of the south door just behind him, the door by which they had entered. He sprang towards it, flung himself first through the wire, then through the baize door to the south. He tugged and he shouted, but the door was now firmly and determinedly locked from the outside. Chloe, on her bike, had been thinking that it was evening again. Up in the chancel there was no sign of Dulcie, but at length he saw the top of her head and her praying hands. She was like a, what's it called, little Dutch thing, little painting on wood. Praying hands, he thought. They have them on Christmas cards, Dürer. Germans were perfectly all right then. Her head was bowed. She still has thick curly hair. He thought. 5 minutes, he called, like a tout or an invigilator. Soon he began to hum a tune from his seat in front of the choir stall. After a minute, she opened angry eyes. We're locked in, he said. Nonsense, she said. I heard the key thrust in and turned. It was Chloe. Dulcie went pattering back down the central aisle, tried the oak door first with one hand, then the other, then both hands together. She regarded the broad and ancient lock. You heard her? Chloe? Yes. Why didn't you shout? I think I did. Now leave all this to me, Dulcie. I banged and rattled and yelled. I will do it again. Yes, she is getting deaf. They stood in icy shadow, and he called again, Hello! It's no good shouting, Fiscal Smith. Nobody in the village is up yet, except Chloe. But he roared out, Hello there! There may be someone walking a dog. Nobody walks a dog as early as this in winter, she said. We're all old here. I'm tired of this old, said Fiscal Smith. We don't have it in the north. Won't Susan be coming by on that horse? And where's the boy? Sleeping? And Susan won't be out for at least 2 hours. She may notice we're missing, but I don't think so. I suppose, he said, you don't carry such a thing as a mobile telephone. Good heavens, no, do you? No, never. Well, we could try shouting louder. And so they did for a time, treble and bass, but there was no response. Of course there are the bells, said Dulcie. She was shaking now with cold. It might warm us up. Fiscal Smith released the tufted woolly bell ropes from their loops in the tower, handed one to her, icy to the touch. She closed her eyes and dragged at it with childish fists. It did not stir. I'll have a go, he said, and after a time, sulkily, on the edge of outrage, the damp and matted bell pull began to move stiffly up and down. But Fiscal Smith was looking exhausted. Go on, cried Dulcie. I think you got it up then, I think, and thought, I believe I'd said something rather risque just then. And she giggled. This is serious, Dulcie, don't laugh. Go over there and pull the blue one. And so they toiled, and after what seemed to be hours, they both heard the sad boom of a bell. I think it's only the church clock striking 7, she said. We must go on trying, he said, but she couldn't, and made for the chancel again, and possible candles on the altar for heat, and he followed, but the candles looked like greasy ice, and all the little night lights people write for memorials to the dead were brown and dry, and there were no matches. Dulcie's lips were turning blue now. This, she said, not crossly, will be the death of me. We have no warm clothing, and between us, we are nearly 200 years old. Do you know, my mother stayed in bed all the time after she was 80. There was nothing wrong with her, but everyone cherished her in those days, all the time. Through a door they found a vestry and a wall full of modern pine cupboards, bequeathed, said a plaque, by Elizabeth Feathers. Wish she'd bequeathed an electric fire, said Dulcie. Inside the cupboards were crammed full of choir boys' black woolen cassocks, and Fiscal Smith and Dulcie somehow scrambled into one each. Dulcie said they were damp. But then over in the priest's vestry nearby there was treasure. Albs, cotters, chasubles, and a great golden embroidered cope beneath a linen cover. Wrap it round you, ordered Fiscal Smith. It's reserved for Easter only, said Dulcie. It's for the bishop and it's too big. It could go round both of us. And so they both stood inside it, their faces looking out from it alongside. My neck is still very cold, said Dulcie. Look, there's a ceremonial mitre and the St. Ague soul. This church, you know, this church was once very high and very well endowed. Can't remember what high is, said Fiscal Smith. I'm a Roman Catholic. But I'm in favour of high if it turns up the heat. Remember Hong Kong? No copes there, too hot. This is very curious headgear, Dulcie. We are becoming ridiculous. I wish this was a monastery, she said. There'd be a supply of hoods. Well, that was because of the tonsures, she said. Oh, I'm not surprised. I had terrible tonsils when I was a girl. Before penicillin, you know, and I wasn't a monk. Wonderful penicillin. I'm lost, said Fiscal Smith. It was God's reward for us winning the war, you know, penicillin. She's bats. Willie used to say that every nation that has ever achieved a great empire blazes up for a moment in its dying fire. Penicillin. I wouldn't have missed our finest hour, would you, Fiscal Smith? I bloody would, he said. Then after a silence, look here, Dulcie. Where do they keep the communion wine? Then there came at length a loud knocking on the vestry door into the churchyard. Are you in there? An answer, please. Are you there? Who are you? A bell has tolled. Yes, we are. We're locked into the church accidentally. Dulcie is not well. It is very cold. This is Sir Frederick Fiscal Smith speaking from the north. Have you tried to open the door? Said the voice. Of course we've tried the bloody door. I mean this door, the vestry door, it's beside you. There is an inside bolt. Fiscal Smith leaned from his princely garment, considered the unobtrusive little modern door, slid open a silken brass bolt and revealed the misty morning, and there in running shorts among the greys stood the family man of the village. Out through the doorway, laced across the trails of young ivy, a door which, like Christ's in Holman Hunt's Light of the World in St. Paul's Cathedral, only opened from within, stepped a pair of ancient Siamese twins in cloth of gold, one of them wearing a papal headdress, and both of them blue to the gills. Away down past the churchyard, at the foot of the steep step path, sped old Chloe on her bicycle, bearing on the handlebars a jam sponge, and in her other hand the ancient church key. She called a greeting and she waved. "I just wondered if I'd remembered to unlock," she called. "Oh, so glad I had." And she pressed on. In the village shop, she said, "You know, there's something going on in the church. I think it's a pageant."